This was John Denver's sixth music album, and it was the first one of his to become a top 10 hit in the United States. It reached number 4 on the Billboard 200 chart. The album's main song, Rocky Mountain High, became one of his most popular songs. It also made it to the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart in 1973. That same year, the song was listed at number 29 on the year-end chart and became especially popular with people who loved nature and being outdoors. The picture on the album cover was taken at Slaughterhouse Falls in Aspen, Colorado, which made the song even more personal to John Denver. Many years later, Rocky Mountain High was chosen as one of Colorado's 2 official state songs. The years 1974 and 1975 were the peak of John Denver's career. In only a year and a half, he had 4 songs that reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. His song, Sunshine on My Shoulders, became number 1 in March 1974. Then, Annie's Song followed in July. In May 1975, Thank God I'm a Country Boy reached the top spot, and I'm Sorry also made it to number 1 in September of that year. These songs showed the different styles of his music. Some songs, like Sunshine on My Shoulders, were soft and full of hope, while others, like Thank God I'm a Country Boy, were upbeat and joyful. Annie's Song became a favorite at weddings and was written in just 10 minutes for his wife. At that time, John Denver's music was everywhere, on radios, on TV, and in homes across the country. During this very successful period, he also released 3 albums that all reached number 1. His Greatest Hits album, released in 1973, became the best-selling album in RCA Records history, even selling more than albums by Elvis Presley. His 1974 album, Back Home Again, went triple platinum in the US, and Windsong, released in 1975, went double platinum. These 3 albums proved that Denver was a major star in the music world. By the time his career ended, John Denver had made about 300 songs, and he wrote around 200 of them himself. In total, he earned 12 gold albums and 4 platinum ones. His music sold over 33 million copies around the world, making him one of the most successful singer-songwriters of the 1970s. John Denver also tried acting, and it turned out to be a surprise success. In 1977, he starred in a movie called Oh, God, alongside famous comedian George Burns. Even though Denver had no acting experience, audiences liked his honest and friendly personality. The movie, directed by Carl Reiner and based on a novel by Avery Corman, told the story of a regular man working in a grocery store who is chosen by God to spread a special message. Denver's acting felt natural and believable, which helped people connect with his character. The film made over $51 million in the US and received an Oscar nomination for its script. Although Denver didn't act in the film's sequels, his performance showed that he could do more than just sing. He became one of the few musicians who successfully became an actor. He also became famous in other countries, even though some people didn't think it was possible. His manager, Jerry Weintraub, believed Denver should connect directly with international fans. So, he organized a series of television specials for people in the UK. He said that if critics wouldn't help make Denver a star, they would just let the public decide. And the plan worked. Viewers in the UK loved Denver's warm personality and clear singing voice, and he quickly became popular across Europe. These TV specials helped introduce Denver to a global audience. One of his specials, An Evening with John Denver, even won a Primetime Emmy Award, one of the biggest awards in television. He appeared in many other TV shows, where he sang songs, told stories, and performed with his friends. These shows brought his music into homes around the world, and each performance felt personal. This helped make him one of the most loved entertainers of his time. But John Denver wasn't just a singer. In the mid-1980s, he spoke in front of the US Senate when parents were demanding warning labels on music they thought was too offensive. Even though Denver was known for gentle, wholesome songs, he stood up for freedom of speech. One of his songs, Rocky Mountain High, had once been misunderstood and censored because people wrongly believed it was about drug use. He explained that it was actually about nature and the beauty of the mountains. Many expected him to support warning labels, but he did not. His speech became a turning point in the national debate about music and free speech, and it still matters today. That same year, Denver became the first American singer in more than 10 years to perform in the Soviet Union during the Cold War. He played concerts in 11 cities, including Moscow, Leningrad, and Tallinn. His concerts weren't just about music. They were about bringing people from different cultures together. Even people who didn't speak English could feel the emotion and message in his songs. He wrote a song called Let Us Begin, which was a call for peace and not war. Recordings from the tour were later made into an album called Live in the USSR. In the late 1980s, he went back to the Soviet Union after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, which had caused great suffering. He sang at a benefit concert in Moscow that raised a lot of money for the victims. Sales from the recordings raised even more funds. That concert wasn't about politics. It was about compassion and support. People in the audience felt cared for and understood. Denver showed that even one person with a guitar could make a powerful difference. In the early 1990s, John Denver brought his music to China. After many years of being closed off from the rest of the world, Chinese people were curious about him. His song Country Roads was already being taught in schools. The Chinese government invited him to perform in several cities, and one of his concerts was broadcast to over 2 billion people. There were ideas to hold his concerts in famous places like the Forbidden City or the Temple of Heaven. Young people in China welcomed him with excitement, and even the country's top leaders had noticed him years earlier. His visit made him one of the most well-known Western musicians in China during that time. In the 1990s, John Denver released a greatest hits album called Homegrown, and he gave all the money from the album to help homeless people. During this time, he also helped start the World Hunger Project, showing how much he cared about making the world a better place. Because of his hard work and passion, he received the Presidential World Without Hunger Award. He also focused on protecting the environment. He used his fame to bring attention to important environmental issues. Denver started the Windstar Foundation and created a project called Planted 2000, which aimed to plant trees and rebuild forests. Helping others became just as important to him as singing songs. However, his personal life was not as happy. His marriage to Annie Martel began beautifully. They adopted 2 children and seemed like a happy family. Denver even wrote Annie's song for her in just 10 minutes, inspired by their love. But as his fame grew, their relationship became difficult. Annie felt ignored and lost in his busy world. By the early 1980s, they got divorced. It was a painful and messy process. Although Denver appeared gentle in public, he acted very differently in private. Reports showed that he could become angry and unpredictable. One shocking moment happened when Annie cut down some of his favorite trees. In response, Denver used a chainsaw to destroy their furniture, including cutting their bed in half. Friends and others who knew him were surprised to see this side of him. The divorce papers included serious claims of emotional abuse. Even some of his former managers admitted that he had a bad temper. Annie never spoke much about the divorce, but many people began to see Denver in a new, less perfect light. Later, Denver met an Australian singer and actress named Cassandra Delaney in the mid-1980s. They met while he was performing at a hotel in Sydney, and he was instantly attracted to her. Their relationship moved fast. They had a beautiful mountain wedding and looked like a perfect couple. But there were problems from the start. Cassandra said it was very hard being with someone so famous. Denver was much older and could be moody. Although they seemed happy in public, their private life was stressful. In the late 1980s, their daughter Jessie was born. Denver had thought for years that he couldn't have children, so Jessie's birth felt like a miracle to him. Some people even wondered if medical help was used. After Jessie was born, Denver became more controlling. Cassandra said he was jealous and distant. Their relationship continued to fall apart. In the mid-1990s, Cassandra gave a magazine interview where she said Denver had no real friends. She explained that many of his employees were afraid of him. Secretaries would often cry and quit. She said that although he seemed kind in public, he was very different behind closed doors, often yelling, drinking, and trying to control her life. Cassandra stayed quiet for a long time, hoping he would change, but nothing did. They separated in the early 1990s and got divorced a few years later. It was a long and difficult legal fight. Denver even sued Cassandra for millions of dollars, saying she had embarrassed him. Cassandra fought to keep custody of their daughter. Denver later wrote about their divorce in his book, saying it deeply hurt him. After that, he was never quite the same emotionally. In the mid-1990s, Denver published his autobiography called Take Me Home. The book shocked many fans. He admitted to using drugs like cannabis, LSD, and cocaine. He also admitted to cheating on both of his wives. Even his relationship with Annie, which inspired his famous love song, had been full of affairs. He said he had sometimes acted more violently than he should have. One story that stood out was the time he used a chainsaw to cut a bed in half during a fight. This confession broke the clean and gentle image many people had of him. Fans saw a side of him that was difficult to accept. John Denver had once been one of the biggest music stars in America during the 1970s. His soft voice and acoustic style made him very popular. He had 25 albums with RCA Records, 13 of which went gold and 8 went platinum. His greatest hits album became RCA's best-selling record ever. But by the mid-1980s, music was changing. New trends like electronic music were becoming popular, and Denver's style no longer fit in. In 1986, RCA was bought by General Electric. The new owners decided to focus on younger artists. Even though Denver had made them a lot of money over the years, they let him go. He had just finished working on an album called One World and thought for sure his contract would be renewed. Instead, the label dropped him. He was heartbroken and felt betrayed. With no other music labels willing to sign him, he had to release his future albums through his own label called Windstar. This was a hard lesson for him. Even the biggest stars can be left behind when the music industry moves in a new direction. Over his life, Denver loved flying. He spent more than 20,000 hours in the air and had licenses to fly many different kinds of aircraft, including single-engine planes, gliders, and even hot air balloons. But in the 1990s, his problems caught up with him. He was arrested twice for driving under the influence. This created a serious issue with the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, which requires pilots to have a special medical certificate to prove they are healthy enough to fly. After the second arrest, the FAA refused to renew his certificate. Without it, his pilot's license was no longer valid. To fly again, Denver would have had to prove that he no longer had a drinking problem, but he never completed the process. Flying, which had once brought him so much joy, was taken away from him, just like many other parts of his life. John Denver's tragic death in 1997 was made worse by the choices he had made leading up to it, especially how he handled orders from the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. When the FAA sent him certified letters demanding that he give up his medical certificate, required to legally fly, he either ignored them or sent them back unopened. This created a legal loophole. Since he hadn't officially accepted the letters, the FAA couldn't complete the process to revoke his flying privileges. So, technically, he still had a license on paper, but only because the system relied on his cooperation. That loophole finally closed in March 1997, when Denver signed for one of the certified letters. From that point on, he was officially grounded. Every flight he took after that was illegal. To regain legal flying status, he would have had to prove his sobriety and comply with FAA rules, something he chose not to do. Yet, despite the warnings and revoked medical status, Denver kept flying. On October 12, 1997, he took out a small, experimental airplane he had just purchased. He had owned it for only one day and had spent just about 30 minutes with an instructor. The plane had serious design flaws. The fuel selector valve, used to switch between fuel tanks, had been moved behind the pilot's left shoulder. It was hard to reach and stiff, often needing pliers to turn. The fuel gauges were also located behind the pilot, making it difficult to read them without a mirror. That day, while practicing takeoffs and landings near Monterey, California, Denver ran out of fuel in the left tank. Witnesses heard the engine sputter and go silent. Denver tried to switch to the right tank, twisting in his seat and reaching behind him, likely using pliers. In the process, he accidentally pressed the right rudder pedal. The plane's nose pitched down, and within seconds, it crashed into the Pacific Ocean. He died instantly. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, later confirmed several key failures. Denver had started the flight with too little fuel, just about 9 gallons total. He was unfamiliar with the complex, modified controls of the plane. The fuel system was poorly designed and hard to use in flight. He had not properly prepared or trained to fly that aircraft solo. The report concluded that the crash was preventable. If he had simply refueled, trained more, or used a safer aircraft, he might still be alive. His death was a sobering reminder of how ignoring rules and warnings, no matter how talented or experienced a person is, can end in tragedy. Beyond the technical causes, the crash exposed a pattern of risky behavior. Denver had a history of pushing limits, performing glider tricks with engines off, ignoring FAA warnings, flying without a medical certificate, and even being arrested twice for driving under the influence. Although no drugs or alcohol were found in his system after the crash, earlier incidents, including a mid-1990s DUI crash, had already tarnished his once wholesome public image. Still, despite the personal struggles and mistakes, John Denver's legacy has endured. His music, full of emotion, love for the earth, and simple beauty, continues to inspire people around the world. Songs like Take Me Home, Country Roads, Annie's Song, Rocky Mountain High remain timeless classics. He was also ahead of his time as an environmental activist, using his fame to raise awareness about nature and hunger long before such causes were widely embraced in the entertainment world. Today, a 15-foot bronze statue of him at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado stands as a tribute to the man whose music and message touched millions. In the end, many choose to remember John Denver not for his flaws, but for his deep connection to nature, his generosity, and the music that still brings peace and joy to so many.